Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health.
Join us as we have fun making the weird shit a normal part of your everyday life. Hello, this is Trish from the Wellness Empowerment Project. Today, Julie and I have on Miss Dana Phillips. Dana is an intuitive human design guide with over 20 years of experience in wellness practices, including yoga, meditation, and energy work. She's also the co-host of the Human Design Hive podcast with her daughter Haley, as they explore the mechanics of human design, offering deep insights to how individuals can embody their unique design to achieve success through self-discovery and self-acceptance. Welcome, Dana.
Hey, Trish, how you doing? Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, Dana. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. Second time here talking with Trish. You were on my podcast not that long ago, which was a lot of fun. And this is my first time meeting you, Julie, so I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and we're excited to have you joining us as well. Dana, I think the great place to start is just give a good explanation of what is human design and why was it so important for you to share with your daughter? Because I think it's wonderful that you have a podcast with your daughter. It must be such a fun experience for you both to share. But clearly, you felt that this was just so important that
Mhm.
you really wanted to integrate the process and the knowledge with her.
Yes, human design is a system. It's a framework really that shows you who you truly are and who you came here to be. It is really an ultimate tool to guide you towards becoming your most authentic self and creating a life that you truly love. And I like to say it helps you to go from playing small to start living large because it really gives you the insight into how you're energetically wired and how to move through life in that way because so often we're just covered with these layers of conditioning as we've moved through life, which I know that your audience is familiar with. I'm sure I don't have to go into that too much, but and really it's just the science of differentiation. It's a system that was delivered to us back in the mid 80s by a man named Ra Uru. Basically had this 8-day long experience, he calls it, with something he called the voice. And it really the information was in a way delivered to him, channeled to him, which took all the elements of these ancient modalities that we're used to and familiar with, like astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, and a little bit of modern science in there. Took all those things and showed how when we can layer them together, create a synthesis of all those systems, it gives us something entirely new, which is human design. If you're familiar with astrology, it's based on the time, date, and place of your birth, shows you what was happening in the cosmos when you were born. And that's the foundation here of human design. And then it layers in with the I Ching these elements of all the different archetypes and themes of what it means to be a human, like human behavior. And it just really gives you a snapshot of that moment you were born, of what was happening in the cosmos, and how that really imprinted on your soul. Where it's a little different from astrology is one, it's not predictive. I know they use astrology a lot for predicting cycles and everything, although there is an element of that through the astrology lens of human design. But where it's different is when you look at your body graph, because your listeners, if they want to pause first and go to my website and get a copy of their body graph, they can, or they can just come back later. But that's at humandesignhive.com. You can get a free copy of your human design body graph. You'll just put in your information real quick. But it shows you the moment you were born. You'll see two calculations of the day you were born and then roughly 3 months beforehand. And this creates this body graph, what it's called, I'm sorry. And it shows you basically like how you move through life, how you can reduce resistance in life, how you can help create more ease and attracting opportunities to you. So it helps you improve your relationships, your work, your day-to-day everything. And so you asked me why I thought it was important for Haley, my daughter, to know this for really just those reasons. She is now, how old is she? She's 27 going on 28. And she doesn't live here in the same place where I live anymore in South Carolina. She lives in Colorado, so we're separated by about 1,900 miles. And we'd always wanted to collaborate before. And I found myself, whenever she was around, just gushing this stuff out because she is a different energy type than me, which we'll get into that in a second. Basically, our energy functions a little bit different. And I found it to be so eye opening for her because she had been in an environment with the rest of our family where our energy types are similar. It She never felt odd man out, but there was just a different way of managing her energy. And since she started learning about it and utilizing the things we talk about on the podcast, she just created so much more ease and flow and just is so much more comfortable in being herself and being who she is. That's what I want for everybody.
If human design is really something that's imprinted upon you
Yeah.
when you're born,
Mhm.
how do people move away from that through life? Is it just things that happen in your life that kind
Yes.
of separates you from I'm not sure what the right word is.
I
Uh,
know what you're trying to ask, I think. Like,
okay.
why don't we know this and why don't we all just operate this way naturally? Is that
Yeah, and what makes us move away from something that should be so central to who we are?
That's a very good question. So, you heard me mention just the conditioning before, but when you're looking at your human design chart, what it will show you is you will see the body graph and it has all these different shapes on it, the triangles and squares and stuff. And those are the energy centers and that's where the component of the chakra system and the Kabbalah kind of meet up. The lines between them are referred to as channels, and then those shapes are called centers. You'll notice on your body graph, they're either going to be colored in or they're going to be white. Okay. The colored in parts are created by the activations that you see on either side of the chart, where the planets were in the cosmos when you were born. That creates what we call definition. Those are areas in your energy system where you have consistent, reliable energy to access to that energy and those themes. Where it's white on your chart, that creates something we call openness or being undefined. That means the energy there is a little more inconsistent and relies on who you're in the environment with. It's more variable because it's taking in the information from those around you, amplifying it, reflecting it back. What we know about human development is that from roughly birth to about 7 years, the child is really their nervous system, their personality, all that stuff is still forming. And so they are reliant on their environment around them. They are really just, their brains are sponges picking up everything from their environment and their parents, their friends, their teachers, whatever. And this is where the conditioning, layers of conditioning can start. Where you're defined in your chart, that feels consistent to you, it's natural, a lot of times you don't even notice it. But where it's undefined, if you remember I just said you take it in, you amplify it, those energies feel more real. And therefore, you tend to think that's you. But those are the parts of you that aren't really you because they're not the consistent parts of you. So that's where you would be picking up the emotional energy of your parents or the identity of people around you or the thoughts of people around you. So there's just all these layers of that imprinting that just keeps piling up. And as you go on your own personal development journey, whether you know about human design or not, the minute you start like questioning why you believe the things you believe and why you do the things you do is when you start peeling back those layers of the onion and deciding what's yours and what's not yours anymore. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 20 some years. I'm sure you ladies have been doing it too. And when I discovered human design, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really have to dig anymore and try to find it through all the mess. I can look at the chart and see the areas where I was most likely to pick up certain behaviors, how that normally plays out, and then learn how to shift that energy and create a new narrative, new story.
I think that was such a great explanation to really what human design is and how our energy is always being, I don't want to use the word manipulated, but
D-
when we're Yeah, impacted and foreign, especially under the age of 7, we're living in a theta brainwave state. So at
Yeah.
that point, our mind, our body, our nervous system is all still being molded. I love that you used the word earlier, authentic. Human
Mhm.
design is the authentic you. Are you able to share with us, or at least in your opinion or the human design lens,
Mhm.
what does the authentic you feel like? Is that different for every person? Are there different aspects of human design that all kind of share similar qualities or properties? Or is it something that we all have to figure out?
There could be the answer to that could be yes and no on everything. That doesn't help much at first, I understand. So what it feels like to be really you could be different for every person, but I think most people want to have a sense of ease in their life. They want to have a sense of when they wake up in the morning, they want to be looking forward to their day, looking forward to their life. They want to, this is a big one, know how to trust themselves in making the correct decisions and knowing that they don't have to rely on people outside of them in order to arrive at things that are correct for them. I don't know about you, but especially in this day and age, we just have so much information coming at us all the time. And so many people are just mired in this constant state of self doubt, anxiety, fear, all these things. And I would think most people would like to live a life that is free of that. And to have a level of joy and passion in your life, doing things you want to do, pursuing things you want to pursue, making a living doing work that you like doing. And so there's so many layers to human design. And at the top layer is essentially there are five main energy types that people are. We touched on that for a second, and we can go into that. But then as the you start so that would be like the top of the funnel, and then as it goes down, it gets very nuanced because you're talking about people, even if you're born on the same day. In astrology, if you're born on the same day, doesn't no matter where you are in the world. Scorpio's a Scorpio, a Leo's a Leo. Where you're born in the world and on what day and what year is very different in human design. You could be many different layers. There's literally millions and millions of different variations of design, and that's why they call it the science differentiation. So there can be five main types at the highest level, which that part alone, knowing your type, can change the quality of your day-to-day life, and it can get very nuanced down to every single little signature on your design. And if you're like me, it could be years later and you're still learning more and more about yourself every day. Did that answer your question? To start, at least.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. I would agree that wanting to feel like your authentic self should be something that's easeful, that you have
Mhm.
joy and passion, excitement, and that you're able to listen and trust yourself. But it sounds like the 5 different categories could
Mhm.
be ways that our energy is functioning differently for each
Yes.
person.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about those 5 different categories.
Sure. Like I said, overall, there's gonna be 5 main energy types or aura types, they call them as well. It's literally how your energy, your aura functions in the world and how it interacts with all the other auras, okay? The 5 types are the manifestors, the generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And we'll start with the manifestors because manifestors start everything. That's sorry, it's a little joke. So the manifestor energy type is only about 9% of the planet. Okay. And these are the people that are really here to impact and inspire others to make change or to start something new, but only when the time feels right. So their aura is more closed to their body because it's only for them. They are the type of people that don't really need, technically, other people in order to get into action. They are literally designed to like get the divine inspiration. They have their own nonverbal, it's a unique nonverbal kind of connection to source that even they can't define, they can't put words to it. It's just they know when they get the urge to start something or act on something or whatever, they can just do it. And they are designed to do that. And they're not necessarily designed to work like everybody else in the typical 9 to 5 fashion. They have limited energy resources because their energy is really concentrated and focused on impacting those around them. So they could really be people that are sometimes their energy from others can be felt as a little uneasy around them because people just don't know what's going to happen around them sometimes. Hold on one second, I lost my train of thought. Impacted. Yes. Said they are not designed to always be pushing, doing the work. They're just there to get the ball rolling. The next type is the generator type. And I'm trying to sidebar, I don't know if you want to say this or not, but I am trying to keep it less technical and more general. 'Cause I know I tend to go too technical sometimes, but so the generator types are roughly about 35% of the people on the planet. And their energy is their aura is a wide enveloping aura. And when we talked about a minute ago, we talked about the energy centers on your chart. One that's really important when we're talking about all these types is one that's called the sacral center. And that is the main powerhouse of all the energies. It's the energy for work and for building, for moving, for doing. The generators are the builders in the world. They have that area in their chart defined. That means they always have access to that energy. These are people that can work all day, really exhaust themselves even physically, but then when go to bed at night, wake up the next day, do it all over again because they have that connection to that sacral energy. I'm a generator type. The next type, manifesting generators, which you guys are both manifesting generators. As you can imagine, you guys have a little bit of both of the manifesting energy and the generator energy. So, what that means is you do have this sustainable access to that sacral energy motor we were talking about, but you have a little added component that you have a little sprinkle of the manifesting energy in there that you are able to get into action as well. So each type has what we refer to as a strategy. And this is where that removing resistance comes in your life according to your type. The manifestor type, I'm going back a little bit because I want to make sure I include this. It's really important. The manifestor type, their strategy, how they're designed to use their energy is to inform. And you remember we talked about how they get the ball rolling in order to reduce resistance around them. If they inform the people around them that are going to be impacted about what they maybe are thinking about doing or want to be doing, it clears the path for them, gets people out of their way, and stops them from coming up against all this resistance or people trying to stop them or any of that nonsense. The generators, our strategy is to respond. And when I talked about that sacral center, it responds to the environment around us in a very clear yes or no fashion. So I said we had this big open enveloping energy. Our energy is designed to actually attract things, people, opportunities to us so that our body, our sacral center, then does the talking for us of, yes, I want to do that. No, I don't. And when we were children, that usually came out as a lot of grunting. You talked about why do we move away from what's natural for us? A lot of it can start there for generators because your parents always tell you, use your words. Why is that kid grunting all the time? And so we lose touch with that yes or no response. But that yes or no response is there to help us know what we have energy for, what is not a good use of our energy. So, you guys, as manifesting generators, you have both. You have that sacral response of yes or no that you can feel in your body, usually like in your upper belly, lower belly. It can be different for everybody. Mine feels like a real expansive feeling somewhere in the belly and chest. And then a no is it just pulls me in like that. And it responds to yes or no questions. That's how it works best, like choices like that, not open ended questions. And so you guys have that response as well. But then if you respond to something positively like that, you also have the ability to get into action. So it helps if you maybe let people know in your environment what you're going to go do, if that makes sense. So you don't just get into action just from thoughts in your head. It has to be something from your environment that you're responding to. That helps reduce resistance for you. Have I lost you yet? I just want to make sure. Okay. And then the projector types, Haley is a projector, my daughter, she's a projector. I forgot to say you're manifesting generators. Sorry. You guys are the other 35% or so of the population. So between your type, my type, we make up 70% of the population. So that's a lot of people that are designed to just respond to life, yes or no, and do all the work. The projector type is about 20% of the population. Like the manifester, they do not have a defined sacral center. They don't have that consistent access to that energy, to that sacral energy. So they're also a type that is designed to not really work in the typical 9 to 5 fashion. They they have access to energy, but it's not sustainable. Their strategy is to, it says, wait for the invitation, which nobody ever likes that. Nobody likes to hear wait to respond or wait for the invitation. It's like, why so much waiting? But the projector types are our guides in this experience. So they are the ones that are really good at knowing what the other needs because their energy or their aura around them is very focused on the other. It's almost like an arrow going straight into the core of the other because they're meant to help us guide and use our energy properly. They make great managers, project managers. They make great coaches, one on one coaches, because they just really can zero in on what the other person needs and help them better manage and use their energy. Where they get into trouble is that I was talking about Haley earlier being a projector in a generator family is she was always absorbing our energy, amplifying it and reflecting it back. So she actually, out of all of us, seemed to be the one that did more and got more done and all other stuff. But if she continued that path for 30, 40 years, God forbid, 50 years, she would be in major burnout because if they work all day physically and they use up all that energy they've been absorbing all day to the point of going past exhaustion, they don't wake up the next day and bounce back. It is a lot harder for a projector to restore that energy. And so they need to be invited into opportunities. These are big opportunities like jobs, relationships, anything that involves their time, energy, resources, because they want to make sure it's a good use of their energy. They're here to help guide people, but they're not for everybody. They're just like their expertise, their knowledge, everything that makes them who they are is really more impactful when it's invited in by the right people to be utilized. If that makes sense. And then the last one's the reflectors. They're only about 1% of the planet. These are people that if you were looking at their body graph, there would be no colored in centers on their chart. It would be all white. So it would be all open, every energy center open. And what they're designed to be is as it suggests, the reflectors. They reflect back to us how we're doing. They are very sensitive to their environment with all that openness. And they're here to really, I say it's like a canary in the coal mine kind of thing. Let us know. Of course, we don't want them to go to the point of being the unfortunate canary, but they're here to really always have a feeler out to know maybe we need to correct here, correct there. They really just help us understand how we're doing. If you look at how these types, how we all work together, the manifestors are here to get the ball rolling, hand it off to all the generator types. We're the ones that build, that work, that do. The projectors manage and oversee the whole thing. And then the reflectors are there to let us know how the whole thing's going. That's that. Sorry, I feel like I'm just giving you a lot of information.
So you talked about strategies for each type.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything more that you would want to know about your type beyond just what it is in relation to your energy type?
Did you have a question about yours to help me understand exactly what you mean?
So mine is the
Manifesting?
inform and
Mhm,
respond
mhm.
strategy.
That work.
Yeah.
Okay, that's alright. Okay, so as I said, the sacral response is there. So let's see how this. My husband's a manifesting generator, and it's interesting when I learn this information to see the differences between the two of us because he does get into action a lot faster than I too do, and a lot of times it used to be something I would get upset with, but you guys are people that are the real multitaskers. Like you are meant to try things out, find faster, different ways of doing things. And so that's why you have that energy to get into action faster. What that looks like is, say, you thinking about something you maybe want to start doing, maybe a new project that you want to work on. Okay, this is the first step. You don't actually just go in and get to it because you are actually still a generator type. You have to respond to something in your outside reality, not just in here. Say you were thinking about a project about, hmm, oh gosh, this is where I get. Do you have anything?
I
Let me
mean, why
think
don't
again.
we even go through an example of how Julie and I starting the podcast?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the idea for the podcast. Okay. Was there anything that gave you an indication that this was a viable and valuable idea? Somebody say something to you? Did you read something? Was there something that started giving you these signs that you should do it?
I guess we should tell our own perspective,
Mhm.
probably. We definitely already had the thought
Mhm.
of doing a podcast. I like talking to people, I like interacting with people, but I also knew it wasn't something I was going to do alone. So I actually sat back and waited. And I recall having a conversation with Julie. Actually, I think it was text message conversation in all honesty. And she said something like, all this stuff is so cool. I think she was talking about, I think you were talking about all the different things we were starting to try. I don't remember exactly, but I remember Julie said something like, she's, I want to do a blog or a podcast or something. And I was
Mhm.
like, let's do a podcast immediately. And I remember, Julie, you were like, why did my whole body just light up? And I'm like,
There you go.
yes, this is it.
There you go, that's it. It's
Exactly.
you recognize that something was given for you to respond to, and it responded to the podcast. Now, generally, it does happen like that. You just hear it, and this is something I wanna do. And then, Julie, for you, do you remember that the same way?
Yeah, pretty much. I listen to a lot of podcasts, really enjoy that platform.
Mhm.
And Trish and I were definitely talking back and forth or texting back and forth about just some weird shit that we've been that we've been
Wish
trying,
Yeah.
exploring, and just it just popped in my head. It would
Mhm.
be really cool for to do a podcast on this type of stuff.
Mhm.
And I don't know what caused me to type it out, but it did. And her response was immediate. And my response was then, oh shit. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go. And so that's definitely my perspective on it as well.
How soon
One
after that did
thing,
y'all get started?
the funny thing
Oh,
was,
a
Julie, I don't know if you
while.
remember this, but I think in the same conversation, I was like, oh, my friend Elsie is coming to visit in like 1 to 2 weeks, and
Mm.
she has a podcast. I would
Mhm.
say we actually had a scheduled call with her when she came to my house.
Mhm.
And she gave us all these little tips, tricks, everything we had to think about to start our first podcast. So
Mhm.
yeah, we actually had resources in our back
Yeah.
pocket that
Mhm.
that were right
It was like,
there.
yeah, everything just lined up because
Mhm.
I think we both wanted to really research what we were getting ourselves into
Mhm.
ahead of time,
Yeah.
and so we both started to go down that path of getting more information about what does this actually entail? What would we
Mhm.
need to do? How the heck can we do it? Can we do it?
Yes.
And so it was months of us planning
Yeah.
and getting
Mhm.
all of that information, spreadsheets,
Yeah.
Virgo power, by the way.
That's
Um,
right.
Who's the
uh,
spreadsheet queen? Both of you? Who's
We both.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
One of us will initiate the spreadsheet and the other
Oh, that's
one.
right. You guys have 3 you're both Virgos because 'Cause you're
Yes.
both, like, born in September.
mhm.
That's funny.
I'm
Yes, you are. That's interesting because what you're talking about, it's a perfect example. You got into action even though you hadn't hit record yet. Like you were doing the thing, and along the way, it still continued to feel good to you. And which is also part of your design. You guys are manifesting generators. You can get into action fast, but then your decision-making process, you can have that, yes, yes, I want to do this, but you have to keep revisiting that yes to keep making sure it's a yes. Because another layer that is there in human design is that, in the simplest terms, half of us are what we call emotionally defined. We have our solar plexus defined, and half of us are not. If you have it defined, which both of you do, and I do as well, that means when we're making these decisions, even though our sacral has said yes and we are seeing the signs we want to go forward, the emotional definition there means that we have to still take a beat and take some time and make sure over time that it continues to be a yes. That's how we know it's really a good thing for us to be pursuing. If you had said, both had said yes, and then a week or so later, you're like, why did I say I want to do that? I should really just do a blog instead. But then a couple days after that, it's, oh, yeah, I want to do that. If you keep going up and down and back and forth, it's not necessarily a good decision for you. But it sounds like it was a consistent yes over time, which is how it happened with me and Haley as well, is she had actually had, I think, or tried to start, she didn't try. Her husband wanted to do a podcast. They did one about travel, and they also be in the outdoors, not travel. And she was like ambivalent. But then we're always trying to think about something we could do like that together. And the idea was just coming to me. And then she says to me one day, oh, we should do a podcast about this. And then that was my yes. I really wanted to do that. And it just kept being a yes, the same kind of experience there for sure. And so you guys have lots of ideas. You can have lots of projects going at once, and it's a really good idea if you have lots of projects. I think when you were on my show, Trish, we were talking about your work and your particular definition. You have a defined head and ajna center, which means your mind is always on. It's a lot more fixed. It needs probably more physical things like your kundalini yoga and everything to get a little more calm, to make the noise go away. And it's interesting, Julie, because in your design, those two centers, the head and the ajna, are open. So that means you have a very open mind. It's a lot more flexible in its thinking. It's not so fixed. It is literally an open mind. And so I would imagine that when you two are together, because I have open head, Haley's defined, there can create it's not a bad pressure. It's just that Trish is bringing a lot of the ideas and the mental activity into the room, and you're quite often just picking up on that. And you may feel like you're the one that's a lot more mentally active and all this other stuff, but you're really a lot of times picking up on her energy as well. But working together, it can be beautiful because you can take the inspirations and the ideas that she brings into the room and look at it from different angles and see what could be interesting here and what could be interesting there, and play with it a little bit. Does that make sense?
I think that's absolutely fascinating, actually. And Julie, I'd love to hear your perspective of it because I do feel like when we talk, I like throw like a canvas of ideas out. And I'm like, all right, what do
Yeah.
you think?
And I'm like, hold on. Because I do like to think about things from lots of different perspectives.
You do. Yeah,
I do.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I'm like, I'm excited about all of them. Just tell me which one to hit first.
And it's true. And then also, Trish, your configuration, your design, that head and that ajna, your mind is also connected through a channel to the throat center, which is that center of communication and manifestation. Julie, you also have that center, throat center defined, but it's not connected to your open head and ajna. Were we just saying that Julie is usually, or not Julie, Trish is talking a little bit more, or it's easier for her to get out of her head what she's thinking? Does that make sense? Than
Oh,
it
yes.
is
I've
possibly
been
for
known
you.
just to put it all out there.
Julie's configuration is more like when she's in the mood to talk or to express, what comes out of your mouth is truly just like transformational and can really land with people because your voice comes from your emotional center about what you're feeling. You can't be pushed into expressing your feelings, but when you're ready to express your feelings, it's beautiful. It's eloquent. You may not see it, but other people see it that way.
Yeah, I could definitely identify with that. I think
That's
that many times when something is coming out in a certain way, I can almost feel like everything kind of wells up. It's
mm,
okay, just get it out and
mhm.
it'll be okay.
Yep. Yep. That's true.
So
Yeah. Go
moving
ahead.
through the chart, what other aspects are in your human design?
Okay. We've touched on type and strategy. And then we were talking about the definition there in that emotional center, whether you're defined or undefined. Like I said, it's 50-50 about whether it takes you a little bit more time to make decisions or if you can make decisions that you can trust that are more in the moment. What's really important in human design to understand and why it's useful, it's not just a little like parlor trick, is essentially it is here to help us tune in to how our bodies are feeling and getting us back into the body as the awareness center for correct living, for being in alignment and less reliant on the mind, which is why I was also so attracted to what you were doing, Trish, and what you guys are doing, because I know that's a big part of your focus is wellness is about taking care of your physical, emotional, mental health. And through that strategy we talked about and through what they call your authority, which is your decision making process, that helps you stop listening to all these outside influences and whatever the mental chatter is and see what feels good in your body and really informs you what to look for, right? Because we talked about that sacral response, what that feels. There's other Haley's authority, her decision making process is different. It's the I know you guys don't have any visuals, do you? But the in the chart, if you're looking at the chart, if you get a report, it'll tell you what your type strategy authority and all this stuff is. You don't have to know it. It'll tell you in the little printout you get. But hers is what is called splenic authority. There's a center there called the spleen center, and it's an energetic center. It's not your physical spleen, but splenic awareness or the splenic center is that instinctual, intuitive awareness that we all have that as animals we have, right? It's what was our first primal awareness center of what kept us alive as human beings, that instinct to pick up on what's happening in your environment and use all your senses, right? Splenic awareness is her decision making authority. And for her, that means when she hears that little voice, or if not a voice, but that knowingness of, oh, go this way today, or oh, let's try this vitamin instead of that vitamin, or just these little things that in the moment will guide her to help her make decisions. And it can change. We just were talking about how she had started training for a race, 15K. And along the way, she wanted to do it. She kept training and all this other stuff. But then when it came time, the day to do it, she has learned as a projector that if she pushes herself too far, it's going to be very hard for her to recover physically. And she knew as the day was approaching, the days before, she was feeling a little off. Her system was feeling a little off. She was feeling a little she wasn't really sick, but she was just that she could feel it. And so she, through learning about human design, decided in that day, at that time, her spleen awareness told her, this is not a good choice for you today. If you do this, it may push you past where you want to be. And so she had to follow that body feeling that she had and be okay with it, which she was. She didn't beat herself up for it, try to mental her way out of it, any of those things. She was just comfortable in her decision that she wasn't going to do it. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about human design is getting you to that place of understanding how you're functioning and how you're meant to function so that you can start doing things like that, trusting yourself in that way. There's lots of different, not lots, there's several different authorities, but basically it's do you take time or can you trust yourself in the moment? And then on your report, you also see things like your profile, which is a whole nother conversation, but that's really about how you are designed to how you learn and how you impact others, whether you're a natural type learner or if you're a book information kind of person, or if you're an experiential kind of person, if that's how you learn. It shows you if you're like strongest in smaller communities, affecting people at large, or if you're meant to be a role model type thing. So many layers there. And so that's why whenever we talk about human design, we really try to always talk about type, strategy, and authority, because really those are the foundation pieces that when you start to understand what your strategy, type, and authority is, all the other pieces in your design can start to slowly come into alignment naturally, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I thought that was actually a beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
And it sounds like human design can also give us some confirmation. I see a lot of people doing getting their human design and almost reading it and be like, oh, yes, I've experienced that before.
Mhm.
And recognizing when we've ignored it and kept
Mm,
pushing, because I'm sure if anyone signs up to do something, you have this expectation that you're going to do it. The fact that your daughter listened and trusted herself and took a step back that day, not an easy thing.
mm.
And it probably took some time to get to that point to be able to even make that decision.
Like in your case, Trish, with your story and how you came into the nervous system regulation and all that other work that you're doing, if we were to look at your design, your spleen center, like we just discussed with Haley, yours is undefined, and your root center at the bottom of the chart's undefined. And all the other energy centers in your chart are defined. That means you have a lot of energy and there's 4 different what we call motors in the chart, which are the energy centers, the sacral, the solar plexus, and another one called the will center, and that root center I just mentioned. They all help move the energy through the chart. Your root center is undefined, and that's the center where, as a motor, it's adrenalized energy. This is where this pulse of energy comes when you need to do something. With it being undefined, that means that you're absorbing the stress of people around you, amplifying it and reflecting it back, not consciously, but it creates an enormous amount of pressure on you. I have it undefined as well, that you always feel there's more to do. Like you've got a to-do list that's 100 miles long, and even though you keep checking everything off, there's 14 more every hour. And it's always, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Because you're just trying, and you'll get it done. You'll get it done fast because you're just trying to get rid of that pressure. So you can I just want to get rid of this uncomfortable feeling that I have a lot to do. And as such, like in the work that you do with the nursing, and managing, that means you're very good at your job. You could get it all done. And they're like, wow, look at Trish. Look how much she gets done. She can handle it. Let's give her more. And you'd be like, okay, I'll get through that and I'll do that next and I'll do that. And then that undefined spleen center as an awareness center is also working with that pressure. You're also more susceptible to other people's fears and things that are happening there. So it's no wonder you ended up in this state of burnout, even though as a manifesting generator, someone who has access to a lot of energy, you were most likely often using your energy for other people and not for yourself. And so it just burned you out and you had to find a way to get back into that regulated state. So it does help explain a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, no, it really did. To be honest
Mhm.
with you, you hit the nail on the head. And
Mhm.
part of me is, man, I wish I knew this way back when, and maybe I would have done things differently or
Mhm.
realized things differently.
Mhm.
But yeah, and especially in certain professions, I would say. I remember one of the physicians that I worked with. He goes, I never understood nursing in the sense that the reward for doing a good job was always more work.
More work.
And it didn't matter if you were like a staff member or in management. If you did
That's terrible.
If you were really fast, like prepping a patient, guess what? You got another one coming through the door,
I know, that's terrible.
you know?
Julie, are you in what are you a nurse? I don't remember. You in nursing too? Oh, that's right.
Yes.
You were a combat, right? Combat nurse? Is that correct?
Yes. Actually, I was in the Army Reserve.
Mhm.
So I was in the military for 31 years. I did a combat deployment. And then I was also a nurse manager. Trish and I were managers together. And now I am in C-suite position
Mm.
for a small center.
Your root center, the one that we were talking about with that pressure, yours is defined and it's connected to that spleen center. And Haley has defined root center too. And the pressure, you're able to handle it a little bit easier. Not that Trish can't handle it. It's just you can't be pushed into really doing things on other people's timelines. It's like, I'll get it done. I know I can get it done, and I know how long it'll take me to get done. And I might feel the pressure to do it, and I might procrastinate, but I'm not going to stress over it too much because I know I can get it done. And that's Haley to a T. And then the other way was me to a T, that undefined of, okay, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it. What else do you need? What do you need? What do you need?
Is that why I get frustrated when I get pushed?
Probably, yeah. And I love that do you guys both use the word frustrated a lot when you're expressing, like, what's happening in your, like, day to day or when things aren't going? You're like, do you use that word a lot? I do.
I would
I
say I
do.
don't now, but I
Mhm.
used to when I was, I would say, very dysregulated and living in
Mhm.
anxiety, stress, and burnout. My husband would say, he was like, "You're always angry." And I'm like, "I'm not angry, I'm frustrated." And yeah, so
Yeah.
frustrated was the word I would use all the time.
That is so perfect what you just said when he said, "You're so angry." You're like, "I'm not angry, I'm frustrated," because each type has what we call a not self theme that lets you, when you're out of alignment, you're not really using your energy the way you should be, or not should be. I hate the word should, but the way that's best for you. As generators, that not self feeling, that emotional theme is frustration. It is that feeling that shows us that we probably are doing work we don't want to be doing. We didn't honor our sacral response. We had a body no, but we went ahead anyhow. Can get you a little more frustrated. And then the anger is actually the not self of the manifester, because the manifester, as we talked about, they have their own nonverbal direct communication to source. And so when they get that urge to get into action, they just want to do the thing that they want to do. That's why they should inform to get people out of the way. Their emotional theme, not self of anger, is because they've been interrupted and it's that energy has to go somewhere. And it's anger and frustration for you. On the plus or on the other side of that, when we know we are in alignment and we are using our energy correctly as generators, we have a sense of satisfaction where it's just like that feeling of, you know what? That was a job well done. I did a good job today. I felt good about that. And for a manifester, it would also be a sense of peace. Oh, I got to do what I wanted to do. Things are good. I did it. I'm at peace. So I should also mention then the projectors, they're not self theme is bitterness. And every time I say that to a projector, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this whole like when they're trying to be recognized or they're trying to get things going, they're not waiting to be invited in. A lot of times they get told they're bossy because you remember there are these guides and these managers. They know what you need to do and they know what's best for you, but if they don't wait for someone to ask them that, or maybe even ask someone else if they can share what they want to, if they just say it or tell you, it's not received well. And they get a lot of that feeling of bitterness is also, it's just not fair. It's just, for everybody else, it's like this. And for us, it's a bitter feeling. But when they are in a good aligned space for them, their emotional theme is feeling successful. And as far as projectors go, from what I understand, I give them those keyword themes and they're like, yep, that's my experience, 100%. And then the reflectors, like I said, they're a small part of the population. I have personally not had a reflector client yet. I've, through groups, met one or two online groups, but I haven't personally yet. But they have a different strategy altogether when we were talking about using your strategy. Theirs is they have to wait almost a full lunar cycle to really feel into their decision-making process, and, like, the moon reflects the sunlight, the other reflects back its environment, so throughout the month, it gets better in touch with that, and when they are in their not self, they can be oh, shoot, I just forgot. Disappointed, and they can also, when they're feeling really great, they could be, surprised and delighted by the outcomes of waiting for their, decision to see what happens. They can be very surprised and delighted, but anyways, that was on a tangent there about the whole frustration, satisfaction thing, because I think it's important to point that out. It's an easy way for all of us to understand, like, where we're at in the day and how we're feeling in that moment. If we're feeling really frustrated or satisfied or angry or peaceful or bitter or successful. So,
Thank you so much for all of that, Dana. Our podcast really focuses on empowering each
mm,
person to a better state of wellness. And we often speak about trusting yourself and really understanding and taking those intuitive cues that come from nowhere else but inside. And I think understanding your human design also speaks to how you relate to your intuition.
mm.
Do you have any thoughts around how human design and wellness come together?
Oh, 100%. A lot of what we were just talking about is if you have an understanding of really looking at your chart, what your centers, if they're defined or undefined, especially we talked about that root center, the sacral center, the spleen, all of those centers, that whether you're defined or undefined there, and what that looks like and feels like and how it functions can really, really impact your wellness. In fact, on my website where you put in your information for a body graph. Once it spits back out, I'll have a report on there. 3 ways to improve your well being, which is it's free and it's really addressing those 3 centers. If you're open or excuse me, if you're defined or undefined there, how that plays out and how you can work with that in order to basically improve managing your stress levels and what your immune system usually functions like, how to work, all those things. And so it it really is an understanding of the it's there's all these pieces to it, and that's where my job comes in is when you do a reading, is where we work together through a couple sessions or whatever, is I can talk about all the different pieces and everything, but each person is so different. When I can look at your whole design and really see what's playing out for you and also what your history is or what you're dealing with in the moment, I can help guide you to see what's gonna work best for you to help you, like we said, get rid of those rough edges and get in a little more, like, ease and flow. That's really I think I'm biased, but I think it can help you with every aspect of your life, and it's literally how I look at everything now. Um, and if I've got a couple different ways that you can start learning more about it. I just mentioned that one, there'd be a free report there for you that you can get. Um, the podcast, we've got over 130 some episodes now where we're literally walking you through a little bit at a time, all these different parts of the chart. And we do it like you guys do. We're conversational. There's a lot of me talking, but there's also Haley learning. And feedback I've gotten is a lot of times she asks the questions the audience is thinking anyhow. So that's always helpful. Um, and then I also have a new offering on my website, which is a human design guidebook, which is completely tailored to you, to each person. Um, Again, you just enter your information. It is delivered to you a couple days later because I do it each one individually, but it covers every aspect of your design and more than what we talked about here today. Going through your type, strategy, authority, your profile definitions, all your different gate activation centers, everything. And it's something that once you have as you go through your human design journey and you can keep coming back to it and be like, "Oh, do I have that gate or do I have that configuration?" And you can just start really I see it as this resource that you will have that you can keep coming back to again and again as you move along your journey to help you get more in alignment.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's really helping to affirm things to yourself. All
Absolutely.
of the ways that we can get in touch with you, I'll make sure we put in the show notes.
Hmm.
And just want to thank you again so much for your time today. Lots of great
Thank you.
information. And
It was
thank
a
you so
pleasure being
much.
here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend.
Want to learn more about a specific topic? Follow and drop us a line on Instagram so we can explore it more with you.